It's been a tough week for New Zealand. Obviously, a wonderful weekend for South Africa. Record-breaking win, the All Blacks' biggest defeat on home soil. And we've been talking a lot about what this means for the Springboks. But I thought, not to rub it in, but I thought, let me go find out what's going on in the other part of the world. And our good mate Jamie Wall from Radio New Zealand. Jamie, has the All Blacks fans stopped mourning yet, or is Scott Robertson still in a job? How tough has it been these last 48 hours in New Zealand?
Well, I honestly, it's still sinking in because obviously something like this has never happened before. That was a record victory, sorry, a record defeat for the All Blacks, following on from the other record defeat we had a couple of years ago to this Springboks side as well. I will say one thing, out of anyone who is going to put a record defeat on the All Blacks, I'm glad it was the Springboks. Just sort of the same way when we talked about the Eden Park thing and how it has to get broken at some point. It would be fitting if it was the Springboks who did it. But I think first and foremost, that was such a good display by the Springboks, like so impressive, um, especially considering that a new backline had been brought in, one that contained some players that we weren't too familiar with, and then throughout that first half, that entire new backline had to be reconstituted on the fly, and then at the point where you thought when Cheslin Colby finally had to leave in about the 46th minute, you thought, right, well, if the All Blacks can't win here, something's seriously wrong because they're against a Springbok team that has um, basically lost the one thing that it's built around, which was their bench impact, and none of those players can be used tactically right now. They've all been used as injury replacements. So the entire game plans for them has gone out the window. And it was like the complete opposite happened. The Springboks got way, way better, and they were already playing well, and just completely blew the All Blacks off the park. And I think that first and foremost, credit needs to go for a fantastic performance by the guys who started the game, by the guys who finished it, and the sort of, I guess, I'm presuming the messaging that was going on, telling them what to do throughout the game, everything seemed to work well, and everything for the All Blacks seemed to go the other way. So I think it's first worth really acknowledging that when you ask about the mood here, it is very much that the Springboks were very, very good, and that they were deserved winners on the night. And to your point about, okay, well, how's it feeling for the All Blacks? Well, I think we're going to know by the end of the week, like really what the public opinion is on this regarding coaches, because this was at about the point in the last regime where people really started to turn on Ian Foster after that run of bad results, that series lost to Ireland, and then that loss to that Argentina in Christchurch in 2022, and that's when the knives really started coming out. Will they be coming out for Scott Robertson? I'm not 100% sure. And the reason why is because Foster had to deal with Robertson being right there, ready to take the job the whole way through. There is no sort of guy challenging for the job, making a case to be the next All Black coach right now. So I feel like there's a question there, but there's no answer to it. And so that's why I think the backlash to this probably won't be as fierce as it has been in the past to All Black losses. But this is still very bad. This is still like a massive step backwards for this All Black team, especially considering how good they were looking after that French series and that first test against Argentina, that everything seemed to be going along quite nicely. And for me, the most annoying thing about it was even in that game, things seemed to be going quite well. I said the Springboks playing well. The All Blacks actually played really well for the first half. They scored a try that ironically is probably going to be up for try of the year. The one that Leroy Carter got,
Mm.
that he finished off, was really, really good. Like it looked like the sort of stuff the All Blacks used to be capable of every weekend. And then it just completely fell apart. So there's some serious questions to be asked, some big questions to be asked about depth and selections. Massive question to be asked about set piece, which was something that again was going really, really well. Now it feels like they couldn't win a lineup to save their lives. And yeah, it's quite perplexing, really, like how it could have got to this point, from the end of July when, like I said, everything looked to be on track.
Yeah, I mean, we were. I mean, I remember our first chat, and I mean, I still made the point back then about, yeah, even though the public may not be sold on Razor, he did put together what 6 or 7 wins in a row, and there was momentum building there before that loss to the Pumas, and that was a concern from our side. But I mean, it just shows you how rugby changes from one week to the next. Because a week ago, I mean, we were down in the doldrums, frustrated at the Boks not getting a win at Eden Park after dominating that second half. You at the stadium, Jamie. So I want to ask you. For me, the key moment was in that second half. 2 key moments. One, Cheslin's intercept try, because I think the All Blacks. I've watched the game yesterday again, and there's a part of me that feels the All Blacks would have gone and scored there if he didn't take that intercept. And then the other one was the scrum when Wilco Low came on and the second front row. They got that scrum. Kobus Reinach broke, Sia broke, and they scored there. And it just seemed like the All Blacks' heads dropped from that moment onwards. I just want to know what your thinking of the game was. Did you see it the same way?
Yeah, absolutely right about those 2 moments. There was actually 2 players that could have walked in for a try when Colby got that runaway. Interestingly enough, that pretty much carbon copy of the try he scored in 2018.
Yeah.
It's quite uncanny, really, because it's the exact same spot, and the man closest to him when he scores is Geordie Barrett, both times 7 years apart. So, yeah, Cheslin Colby clearly quite likes playing at Sky Stadium. Then again, so do a lot of people who play the All Blacks, because they don't seem to be going very well there. Those 2 points you mentioned, absolutely. I would add another 3, but I'm going to sort of make the one point. There's either side of Damian Willems's try, there was 3 lost lineouts, and Damian Willems's try was scored off a lost lineout, one that was actually such a poor communication and throw that Nokia was able to pretty much catch it without even a lift, and almost went over and scored himself. And then that set up Willems's try. After that made it 24-10, and it was like, well, there's about, I think that was on the hour mark, so there's 20 minutes left, so it wasn't completely gone at that stage. And then straight after the kickoff, the All Blacks either kicked a 50-22 or got a penalty that put them into the Springbok 22, and you thought, okay, well, they really need to make something happen here. And again, the Springboks just pinched the line out. And that was the point to me. I was like, this one's gone, because if you can't win a line out, if you can't win a scrum, if your scrum's getting pushed back, then you're cooked. And at that point, it was like, okay, this is going to be a pretty, magnanimous sort of, like, this was a very good Springbok performance, and the All Blacks tried hard in the second half, because I would have thought, like, okay, just keep in the game, maybe score another try. Kind of almost the reverse of what happened at Eden Park. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then they just let the Springboks cut loose, and by the end of it, it felt like watching a Super Rugby Pacific game, because it felt like the All Blacks just lay down and was starting to think about next week, and that to me is kind of getting into the unforgivable territory, because you don't see All Black teams do that, and there's a reason why their records hold up so much better than other countries, because there hasn't ever been a time where they've. I mean, I will put one thing: they're still the only Tier 1 Test team that hasn't had 50 points put on them. I mean, they were a couple of minutes from having that happen to them, but the results like this, when a team runs up a big score, the All Blacks will run up a big score with them as well.
Yeah,
and so it's that's what the most mystifying part of it for me is how that team, who's got, had some young players and a guy on debut, but had plenty of guys who've been around for a long, long time, 3 of them with the same surname, who should have kept the standards much, much higher, because all credit to Ahis Naiman for scoring that nice try, but a guy that size should not be running that far untouched. And to kind of give up on the play that where Esterhuizen scored, like, again, fantastic try and everything, but it never should have got to that. And also just the inability to probably just smell the blood in the water around what the situation the Springboks were in. And Test rugby, obviously, you never give a sucker a chance. And to the Springboks' credit, they absolutely took it, because that was a game we were sitting there at halftime thinking was actually going to go the complete other way.
Yeah, no, I must admit it was very strange to see. I mean, I've covered a couple of tests in New Zealand. You and I both spoke about. I mean, you've written books on the All Black Springboks clashes. They no matter when, even our worst times, and I mean the 57-0, the very next week it was so close. That was such an anomaly, and I think we probably felt worse than you guys do this week, or probably about the same, I reckon. In just how strange it was seeing that. But a New Zealand team in New Zealand, you never see them lay down like that. And I think that's the worrying thing from the rest of the world rugby point of view and from New Zealand rugby point of view, because yeah, I mean, we want the All Blacks to be strong. We want to beat you guys, and we'd love to whip you guys every now and again. But we want you guys to be strong because we love the rivalry. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping it was just a blip. I know there's going to be a lot of soul searching done this week. So let's maybe turn to you guys. Got the rugby championship still wide open, strangely enough. And probably Gavin said it yesterday in our chat with Nick Mallett. The Boks probably are in the driving seat now because historically they've been very good against Argentina. So what do you see for these two Bledisloe Cups? I mean, Joe Schmidt's going to come there with quite a bit of confidence now. They're going to believe that the All Blacks are very vulnerable.
Well, this is the thing, is that they've just given the Wallabies like this massive wave of confidence because, yes, the Wallabies lost on the weekend, but it was to a very good Pumas team that they beat last week. And so I feel like the Australians are coming over here with a great deal of confidence. Yes, they haven't won on Eden. I mean, no one's won on Eden Park for ages, but they'll be thinking this is their best chance in years. And they're playing this up-tempo game that worked so well against the All Blacks on the weekend. That the Springboks, I don't think the Springboks really gave them a blueprint because the way that they set things up was so heavily reliant on a strong set piece and a kicking game. But they were cutting them to shreds. In the back, there was these holes everywhere, and the way that the Australians play, which is you guys found out in Johannesburg, is that they're fully capable of taking advantage of just a slight defensive mishaps. And so I think they're coming over here saying, well, we're going to run the ball from everywhere. I think it's going to be a great game. We've got a nice afternoon kickoff here in Auckland as well, which is a nice change. So there's going to be no excuse for the All Blacks not to do it as well. But there's some serious unease around, firstly, how do you fix what went wrong in that game? You say it was a blip. I mean, I would say it's a bit bigger than that because it's a record loss. And it's how do you regain the trust of the public and also probably within New Zealand rugby right now, because they'll be sitting there saying to Scott Robertson, like, we made this happen for you. You lobbied us really hard to get this job, and you came in with some big ideas and some big plans. We can't have this ever happen again. So I think that there's a lot on the line, and apart from just the Bledisloe Cup, which, again, is something that the All Blacks have had for 23 years now. And if they lose that, well, then, it's all on, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the worst thing probably for the All Blacks, and knowing that the Springboks have been on the side of the thing as well, is just the fact that it's a bye week now. Because if you could get back in and play next week, you could quickly rectify and make people forget a little bit. But the fact now there's going to be more soul searching because there is 14 days before the next game. Last question I want to ask you, Jamie. I'm not going to make your suffering even worse, but do you see any sort of change coming in terms of the overseas policy of picking players offshore? Because I'm sure that debate's probably reared its head already and probably will in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's a really good question because obviously it's something that you guys have made work for the Springboks. And it's also something that other countries, it's not even something they even think about, right? Apart from, a couple of notable exceptions in England and Ireland. But honestly, I don't think it's going to be changed anytime soon. And for the simple reason that if they did, it would pretty much collapse the professional game in New Zealand. We would lose so many players that we probably wouldn't get back. And I understand that, it's just kind of different in South Africa. This was probably on the cards for a lot longer. And then the other thing is that I think a lot of the motivation with New Zealand players right now is they'd rather have it the way that it is. They in New Zealand, they don't want to be, basically given an ultimatum of, well, you can take your $10 million and go play overseas over the next 10 years. They quite like the way that contract negotiation works here, and that you sort of do it in 4-year cycles along with the World Cup. So it actually does suit the players a lot better, because of a lot of them, they're young men, they're getting married, they're having families, they're settling down. A lot of them just want to stay here. They don't want to have to be like, well, the only way I'm going to make money in the sport is if I go play in Japan or France. Like, I want to stay here in New Zealand and represent the All Blacks. So for us, it's I'm not saying it's a better or worse way. It's just, it works for us this way. And honestly, I think if it wasn't for Richie Mo'unga, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because he is really the only guy out there right now who you would say, like, okay, if they change the policy, we can bring guys back. He would be the only one who would be coming back. There's really no one else. I don't think. I mean, Shannon Frizzell would be kind of iffy, but even then, I feel like they're so strong in the loose forwards right now that it wouldn't be really seen as a massive, reason to go and start messing with something that really is kind of, last weekend's result aside, it has worked, and we need our Super Rugby teams to be as strong as possible. So, yeah, a bit of a long-winded answer, but I guess, yeah, it's not going to change, and at least not in this World Cup cycle anyway.
Yeah, no. Well, I think the big difference we went through it. We had at some point, I think it was 700 players playing overseas at one point, and the big change for us has been going to Europe and the URC, because players can earn that money, be in Europe and still stay in South Africa, and that would be the biggest challenge, I think, as well. As you say, the Super Rugby would be hollowed out as soon as those European money-rich clubs get the chance. So, Jamie, thanks, and we'll probably catch up at some time closer to the Bledders. We'll have a bit more of an idea of how the national mood is there. But I think at least, I know you one guy, at least just to sign off, to say you probably were quite enjoying the fact that you were at such an historic game. Not as much as the result, obviously, but just at least that you were at such an historic game where, it will always be remembered. I've got the same thing. I was in Japan for the Japan Springboks game at the World Cup in 2015. Terrible from a Springbok fan point of view, but as a sense of occasion, to be something so historic at the ground was amazing. So I that sort of feeling, at least. So hope you guys get answers. I hope the All Blacks. We know the All Blacks will
if I can just say, I will never ever regret going to an All Blacks Springboks game. I think 100%. I've made it quite clear that it's my favourite fixture in the game, and it's the second time I've gone and watched the Springboks put a record score on the All Blacks. But that's never going to stop me wanting to go and watch these two teams play. So yeah, you're right. I was lucky enough to be there, and I was lucky enough to be part of it, be in there, be able to get a great speech from Rassie Erasmus. After, it's very magnanimous, by the way, what he said, that was received very, very well over here in New Zealand, and then talking to Damien Williamson and Cheslin Colby after the game as well. It was a real privilege. So, yeah, going to be a really interesting next few weeks, though, for both the All Blacks and the Springboks.
Great. We'll catch up before the Blazers. Thanks again, Jamie, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.